Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the first workshop of the Love-ology series with Ustadh Shabbir Hassan. This is the first workshop, this is the recording. We are also going live next week with the second workshop, so make sure that you're there. Jazakallah khair.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته everyone. Hope you're doing well inshallah and having a great day so far. Welcome to this short first part of the program. As introduced, my name is Shabbir inshallah. I will be with you all for the duration of the evening as we discuss a topic which of course is super important. It's that time of the year as well. You know, it's talked about a lot. You know, you'll hear a lot mention of love and all of these things, right? So yeah, basically we'll have the first session today, which is most of the things. I'm gonna mainly focus on the concept of love. You know, love in Islam, of course, leading into marriage and so on. So we'll talk about all of those things. Definitely, we can have like a Q&A session at the end as well. I'm sure a few of you will have some questions, so more than happy to take some questions towards the end. Other than that, yeah, I mean, utilize the chat options. I'm sure the brothers will let me know if there's any questions at the end. Yeah, otherwise, inshallah, sit back and we're going to go through some interesting discussions, let's put it that way. And in between, one thing that I will be doing, because, you know, alhamdulillah, now we live in this digital age where, you know, most of you, if not all of you, probably have social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, etc. In between, we're going to kind of like do something different. I haven't done this before, but we're going to be like analyzing some tweets, right? So analyzing tweets related to, of course, like love and marriage and so on. Okay, so you know, the first one I guess sums it up, right? Have a look at this. This is a tweet that was shared. Everyone around me can't be asked. Basically, everyone's talking about marriage online. Yeah, everyone's talking about marriage or getting married, whatever it is. You know, it seems to be the topic, right? That Muslims speak about a lot. And definitely this is a good thing as well. You know, we should learn about this, we should speak about this, we should open up these conversations. But sometimes what tends to happen is, as we discuss these topics, you know, as with everything, I guess, you know, what ends up happening is maybe a picture is painted that perhaps isn't really, you know, doesn't really capture reality. You know, there's many things that are portrayed on social media about marriage or love and relationships. Maybe it's not all as it seems, right? So that's really what we're going to talk about today. And to kick off the discussion, before we can even talk about Nikah, before we can even talk about marriage, right? We have to talk about the basics, which is, before anything else, what is even love? How do we define love? You know, we always talk about love, right? And love, there's a whole spectrum when it comes to love, right? Loving, you know, you can love, for example, your friend. You can love your best friend. You can love your parents. You can love your siblings. You can love your family members, right? This is love for people, but you can also have love and be attached to things. You know, you can love, I don't know, an item that belongs to you. You can love your car. You can love a football team that you support. You can love, you know, a hobby of yours. Right? These are all, we always describe this as love, right? But of course, you know, the kind of love that we're going to be talking about is no doubt in the context of marriage, right? And relationships, right? Love between basically the spouses, love between the husband and the wife. So in terms of definition, there's many definitions for love, but one of the common ones is that love is, you know, this intense feeling, right, of deep affection. It's, you have this feeling of deep affection towards another being, another person. Okay, so one thing that we have to start off with, and one thing I always say, I always stress on, is love is natural. It is a natural human emotion. Does that make sense? Yeah, you cannot suppress love. there's not a single one of us that can claim that we don't have an ounce of love in our hearts. We all have love for someone or something, like I said already. Love is a natural, it's a natural feeling and emotion, okay? And there's nothing wrong with feeling love. There's nothing wrong with falling in love. We talk about falling in love, right? Again, we can discuss what that actually means, okay? Maybe it's not like we see on TV, for example, right? Falling in love, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with feeling love, etc. Okay, but as with everything, there's always a balance. There's always, guidelines to help us kind of, not steer in the wrong direction. Okay, so yes, it is very natural to feel love, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And love is, like we said, to have another definition is to have an interest in something, to take pleasure in something. This all has to do with love. So it's very natural, and you cannot suppress it. You cannot suppress love. Everybody will experience that, especially, it's expected in the context of marriage, right? When you get married, you're supposed to do things out of love for each other. You're supposed to love one another. You're supposed to feel love towards each other, right? We always talk about love. In fact, when Allah describes marriage in the Quran, in verse 21, Surah Al-Rum, He says, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Allah placed between your hearts mawadda, love, and rahmah, mercy. So Allah actually describes that love and mercy are from the from the key kind of foundations of marriage. Without love and mercy in your marriage, Allah has given you two ingredients out of many, of course, but these are two fundamental ingredients for marriage. You have to have love, and you have to have rahmah and mercy towards each other. If you don't feel love towards your spouse anymore, and if you don't have mercy, show mercy towards them, that is a sign that basically your marriage is on the brink of collapsing. Okay, so love is there and it's very important, right? One thing that's really interesting about love is in the Arabic language, one of the most common words that's used for love is the word hub. Okay, the word hub in Arabic, many of you I'm sure have heard of this word before, right? Hub is the most common word, it's the most generic word, we could even argue, for love. But if you dig a bit deeper, okay, in the Arabic language there is a link between the word hub and the word habbatun, right? Hubbun and habbatun. Hub means love, and habba means a seed. It's mentioned in the Quran as well. Again, the word habba is mentioned in the Quran. It's a seed. What do you do with the seed? You plant the seed, right? So they share the same root letters in Arabic. They share a very similar meaning. But then you may ask yourself, what on earth has love got to do with a seed, right? A seed is something else. Love is something else, right? But there is a link. Okay, there is a link, actually. When you think about a seed, as an example, right? A seed is useless if you don't do anything with it. Like you can have a whole pack of seeds. You can leave that in your kitchen. You can leave that in your front room. You can leave that in the garden. Nothing's going to happen if you don't actively do something with it. Okay? And what do you do with the seed usually? You plant the seed, right? You usually plant the seed. Once you've planted the seed, is that enough? No. You then have to nurture it, right? You have to nurture it. You have to water that. You have to pour water over it. You wait for a while, and it has the potential to grow into something quite amazing. Whether it's a plant, it can grow into a huge tree. On that tree, there can be fruits. You can, benefit and eat even those fruits. You can take pleasure in it. Something amazing can happen from what? It all started from a seed, right? At the same time, right, when we think about love, hub, right, in Arabic, love is planted in a person's heart, right? We always create the link between the love and the heart. That's where, we always create that link, right? So love almost in Arabic, it's almost like planted in your heart. It's like a seed is planted there, okay? Now, it's not enough to just plant love there, okay? You need to nurture it. You need to put some effort into it. You need to invest into it, right? You need to invest, for example, into your relationship as an example, right? The way that you're investing into this seed that you want it to grow. And love has the potential, like that seed, to grow into something beautiful. That relationship, which of course is through nikah, is through marriage, has the potential to grow into something beautiful. But on the flip side, that same seed that you planted, if you pour too much water over it, If it rains and it's flooding, right, then that seed and the plant, everything will be destroyed. It won't, right? Or if you don't do anything to it, like we said, nothing's going to grow, right? Similarly with love, if you just, if you love something too extremely, if you're obsessed with something borderline, right? Too much love is also not good, right? It has the potential to destroy things, right? So love, we have to balance it, like any other emotion. Let me give you another example. Any emotion, think about, right? The feeling or the emotion of sadness, the feeling of anger, right? All of these are natural emotions. All of us, we feel sad from time to time. All of us, we feel happy and joy from time to time. All of us, we feel anger from time to time. All of us, we feel love from time to time. Okay? These are all natural human emotions. And there's a balance in these emotions. For example, if you were to try and suppress your emotions entirely, like love or like sadness, right? Take sadness as an example, right? You feel sad, but you keep masking those emotions. You keep hiding those emotions. You don't ever, you don't ever let yourself grieve or do anything, right? There's no output. Yeah. What will happen after some time when you keep bottling in your emotion, that emotion of sadness? There will come a point where you just burst. You can no longer take it, right? You have to let it all out, right? Similarly with anger, you feel angry and you keep, right? You keep bottling it in, right? What will happen over time? You're just going to switch all of a sudden. That person that's annoying you, right? You keep bottling it in. You've never dealt with the issue. You've never, faced the issue, right? And you keep bottling in, bottling in, bottling in. What will happen one day? That person annoys you, and that's it. You just let loose. You will start swearing at them, saying whatever you want to them. You'll end up upsetting them, right? It could destroy a relationship if you do that. So you don't want to cause an imbalance, right, when it comes to emotions. Likewise, if you hate someone so much, right, you're not controlling it at all. If you, feel so sad all the time, right, and there's no kind of balance there. Similarly, if you love someone so much, it's not a good thing either, right? If you love someone so much to the extent that you are constantly thinking about them and you are obsessed over them, right? This is not a good thing. Don't think it's a good thing. Yes, if you watch the movies, and yes, in Hollywood and Bollywood, right? And all of these things that we watch and on social media, right? They will tell you love is this amazing thing. You should, I'm so obsessed with you, Romeo and Juliet thing, I would die for you, right? I would die without you, all of these things that we've been brought up, being told and watching and hearing, right? This isn't a good thing. Don't think this is like we said, Islam is not here to police your emotions because Allah created us with these emotions. Allah is not going to create you with something and then say, that's it. It's impossible. Allah created you with it, and He's acknowledged this even in the Quran. He's acknowledged that we have these emotions. He's mentioned things like love and sadness and so on, right? But there's always a balance, and you don't want to go to the other extreme. Okay, so this is really important when it comes to love. Like we said, we're gonna be analyzing tweets every so often. So here's another tweet from Brother Buna Muhammad who says that love is a verb. I like this quote. Without action, it's merely a word. Yeah. Love is a verb. What's a verb? A doing thing. It requires action, right? You're walking, you're talking, you're eating, you're sleeping, you're exercising, you're reading, you're writing, you're studying. These are all verbs, right? Verbs. There's action involved. He says, but love is also a verb, and without action, it's just a word, right? It's just empty words. Nowadays, we can say to each other, I love you. You can say to your spouse, I love you. You can say to your friend, I love you, right? But words are, talk is cheap, as they say, right? These are empty words, right? You can't love someone or you can't claim to love someone without backing it with action. Without backing it with action. Now, obviously, there's so many things that you could do to prove your love to someone. And we're not going to go into that because so many different contexts, right? But is it what we are told that love is, think about like this whole Valentine's Day craze, right? What do people do on Valentine's Day? It's this, like nowadays we have what we call this kind of like commercialized love, right? It's this commercialized, fake, very plastic, love, right? What is it? It's like, I'll give you a bunch of flowers, I'll buy you a box of chocolates, um, and yeah, get you a nice card and tell you that I love you, right? And that's what love has come down to nowadays, right? It's come down to these kind of events, right? Obviously this is most of the time it's outside of marriage anyway. It's in these relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend. Oh yeah, I love you. This is just all empty talk. It means nothing really if you think about it. You might think at the time, oh, that's really nice, it's really sweet, but there's like a million other people, millions of other people doing the same thing, right? What is love when it comes to marriage? Is that what you do in a marriage every day? Do you buy each other flowers every day? Do you buy each other chocolates every day? Is that what you're going to do for the rest of your married life? Is that all love comes down to? Yes, one language of love is to give gifts. Absolutely. It's a love language, right? If you know Gary Chapman's book, Five Love Languages, one of the love languages is to give and receive gifts. This is definitely, and it's from the Sunnah, by the way, to give gifts. But you're not going to do that every day. If in fact you'll probably get bored. You don't want to overdo it. So what is love? There's so many ways of expressing your love, whether it's through physical touch, whether it's through, words, compliments and words of encouragement, whether it's through just listening and engaging, right? Whether it's through giving gifts, right? Whether it's through spending time with each other, okay, going out of your way for each other. These are all love, and these are things that require a lot of effort. And it doesn't just come down to, let me just quickly buy something and job done, right? Love, there's more to it. So it's not just what we think about or what we're told, right? And yes, there are definitely stages of love as well, we could argue, right? There's stages of love, right? When you like, for example, when you see a man or a woman that you find attractive, okay, and we're all adults here, okay, all adults here, and I'm sure we can all have a mature conversation about this, right? And there might be a few things that I say duration of this webinar, right? Which you might be like, whoa, like, what are you saying? But just make sure you listen the whole way, right? Don't take anything out of context here, right? We're getting to I'm building up to the main points, right? So stages of love. Look, we're all, like I said, we're all adults here. I've already clarified, and I'm sure you all know, to have these feelings is very natural. So let's not shy away from it. Okay, let's not go to the other extreme of suppressing these feelings. If you see an attractive man, if you see an attractive woman, you see someone of the opposite gender, you find them attractive, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Let's just put that straight first. Okay, growing up culturally, maybe we were told even that's wrong. Even that's wrong. To even feel that, astaghfirullah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, just go do tawbah, finished, right? This is wrong completely. Look, no, right? Allah created us in a way, right? You grow up, you go through these phases, okay, you're into the years of adolescence now, okay, hormones, all of these things, it's there, you can't control it. There's nothing wrong with seeing someone that you are attracted to physically, and what happens when you see someone that you find attractive? There's like signals being sent, right? You feel something, you don't know how to describe it, but you're feeling something at that point. Okay, now there's nothing wrong with what you've just felt there. It's not astaghfirullah haram. What you do next, yes, that would determine if it's wrong or not. And this is why in the Sunnah we are told that the first glance is forgiven. Does that make sense? Why? Why is the first glance, if you saw someone of the opposite gender, you shouldn't be looking at them, okay? The first glance is forgiven. Why? Why is it forgiven for? Because A, you can't not see the opposite gender. Does that make sense? Like, we live in a world where Allah created men and women. Allah says in the Quran, and ironically it's at the beginning, it's the first verse of a chapter called Surah An-Nisa. Nisa means woman, the chapter named after woman, where Allah says, وَبَثَّ مِنْهُمَا رِجَالًا كَثِيرًا وَنِسَاءً. Allah spread on this earth many men and women. So there's no such thing. It's not practical to have a completely segregated society. It doesn't work. It's never worked. The best of all people, the Prophet ﷺ, his companions, they did not live in a segregated society. There was no one marketplace for the men, a separate marketplace for the women. There was not one masjid for the men, a separate masjid for the women. There was no one, whatever, right? It's people live together. It's a society. That's how it works. Just like we live, right? You go out to the shops, you go out to university, you go out to the workplace, whatever. You're gonna see men, you're gonna see women there. You can't do anything about that. You can't segregate society. Islam, it's not an Islamic approach either. You may think it's an Islamic thing, it's not, right? Society as a whole we're talking about. You can't segregate society. So, coming back to why the first glance is forgiven is because naturally when you go out, you can't not see, you have to look around, right? Yeah, Allah gave you eyesight, you have to use that. So what's going to happen is you're going to see men, you're going to see women. So of course the first glance has to be forgiven, because how can you not see them? And B, it's completely natural. In other words, like the Prophet is teaching us, even if, right, because we're not saying that for a woman, every man she sees, she finds attractive. And for a man, every woman he sees out there, he finds attractive. That's why we just kind of go about our day, right? We don't really think about these things. But every so often, what will happen? You will see a man if you're a girl. If you will see a woman if you're a man, that you find attractive. That is fine. I mean, you can't do anything. See, we as human beings, we have been created by Allah in such a way that we are attracted by beauty. We are attracted to beauty. Does that make sense? You can't stop that. An example of this, so completely separate from people being attracted to each other, is just think about when you're in a shopping mall, you're in a shopping center, right? You're in the high street. Even nowadays, you're online on Amazon or something, right? As you're walking, you see something on the, display. There's a mannequin, right? You see a nice jacket that you want to buy. It's beautiful. You see a nice pair of shoes, right? What does it do? You are attracted to it, right? It's a different type of attraction, but you feel something towards it. You feel inclined towards it because you've seen it. And this is why the scholars, they say, right, that the eyes, they are scouts for the heart. The eyes are scouts for the heart. What does that mean? What do scouts do? Scouts go and they send messages. When the eyes see something, the eyes send signals and messages to the heart. The heart then slowly starts to become inclined towards that thing. The heart then desires that thing. Does that make sense? Even scientifically, this is proven, and the scholars, of Islam, they have said the same thing, right? The eyes, you see something you're attracted to, it sends signals to your heart. You see an advert with a nice burger there, with a nice meal deal there. You see that advert, and all of a sudden you feel hungry. Why do you think that is? Because you've seen something, it looks appealing, and it's sending signals, and now you desire some food. You feel hungry all of a sudden. You weren't hungry 10 seconds ago, but now you are, right? Similarly, you see, of course, a man sees a woman who is attractive to him. A woman sees a man who's attractive to her, right? Now, it's completely natural. Islam doesn't say that first gaze, there's something wrong with you if you feel that. No. In fact, it's a good thing. It's a good sign. And you're like, you feel attraction, that's fine, that's good. Now, then the Prophet taught us what? That the first glance is forgiven, but you can't look back again. You can't then say, well, okay, I like the look of that. Let me look again, and let me look again, right? Why? Because now it's not about what's natural, unnatural. Now it's about you're overstepping the mark. You're overstepping the line here. You can't keep looking. Do you know why? Because the more you look at something, the more you're going to desire it. The more you look at something, the more you're going to desire it. Okay, the more thoughts will go through your mind. Maybe you're going to start, thinking about other things, right? It may lead to something which you're not supposed to be doing. Does everyone understand my point? Yes. So this is completely natural. The first glance. After that, thereafter, you shouldn't look again, right? So this is wisdom. This is a model that has been given to us by the Prophet ﷺ, right? But now you may say, what is this feeling then that I feel? This sensation that I feel when I see a man or a woman that I'm attracted to. Okay, isn't that love? Right? Because some people they may say, well, but I love her. You've seen someone for like 5 seconds, right? You've seen someone, known someone for like a day, and like I feel like I'm in love with them. See, this isn't love. Okay, and our Prophet warned us about this. Famous hadith in Abu Dawood, he says, حُبُّكَ الشَّيْءَ يُعْمِي وَيُصِمُّ. He says that your love for a thing can make you blind and deaf. But here, of course, he's not talking about physical blindness and deafness. He's talking about, there's an implied meaning here that sometimes when you fall in love with something, right? Just like, I gave you the example, you saw that jacket, you saw that new coat, you saw those pair of shoes in the shopping mall, and what happens is your heart feels something towards it. Your heart falls in love with it, right? We say this sometimes. I've fallen in love with this thing. I need to buy it. What then happens is, you only have £100 in your bank account. This particular item of clothing, it costs £90, right? Or forget £90, it costs £110, right? You've only got £100 in your bank account, and your friends around you are telling you, no, don't buy it. Why are you gonna put yourself into minus for, come on, it's not worth it. And you're like, no, I have to buy it. It's so amazing. I need this. You don't need it though. You know deep down you don't need it. You know that you could actually go to a different shop and buy a jacket. Let's say you need a jacket. You don't need that particular one. You can buy another jacket for half the price, and you can have a good amount of money left over still. You can pay, you can buy some lunch, etc. with it. But you're willing to ignore all of that, right? Because you have fallen in love with this thing, and you need it, and you want it, and you desire it, and you do whatever it takes to get that thing. It makes you go blind and deaf. Love. Now imagine in the context of the most strongest feeling that you can have. Forget you're feeling towards an item of clothing. The feeling of attraction between two human beings, there's nothing stronger than that. Now imagine when you feel that, right, and you are consumed by it, okay? And people are telling you, you're like, I want to get married to this person. I don't care. I want to get married. I want to give my life up for this person. I want to commit. And people are telling you, I don't know, man, there's some red flags here. I'm not too sure. Maybe you should, there's other options. Like, why? You don't even know her that well. Maybe in terms of religion. Like, they're telling you these things. You're not listening to anybody's advice here. Even if there's something wrong, even if there's, they have flaws, which everyone has, of course, right? But they have, there's flaws there. There's, there's reasons for you not to, okay? There's shortcomings and all of that. And you can't see any of that anymore, because love has made you blind and it's made you deaf. It's fallen on deaf ears. You don't want to listen to anyone's advice. You can't see anyone else but this person now. Love has the ability to do that. But what is that feeling? Is that true love that we're talking about? No, we are now talking about things like infatuation, lust, desire. Okay? We have to separate things like infatuation and lust and desire from love itself. Okay? We have to separate, because that feeling that you feel, where you feel like the whole world has paused, you can't think of anything else at that moment. This is what you call infatuation. It's a physical type of attraction. You are attracted to that person physically. That's all it is. And that's why you want to look at them more. And that's why you find pleasure in looking at them. And that's why you are thinking of other things at this point, because you are physically attracted to them. And that's not real love, because of course there's way more to a person than physical attraction. Physical attraction is important, but that's not the only thing. So now what then happens? That feeling then turns into attachment. The more you look at that person, the more you spend time with them, the more you speak to them, you become more attached to them. And then what does that attachment lead to? Right? After some time, it turns into this passionate love. Ishq, as we call it in Arabic. Ishq is not a good type of love. It's this passionate love. Again, it's just all about fulfilling desires and so on. It's not about true love, which is through nikah, right? And then, understanding and unlocking a different, side of a human being. You're not interested in any of that. Okay, you're just interested in the physical side, fulfilling your desires, temporary, short-term relationship gain, that kind of thing. If this is what it turns into, these are the stages of love, right? It's a type of love, but it's not a good type of love. It's an unhealthy type of love, in fact, right? It's not a good type of love. And then this is what happens. People jump into relationships, few weeks, few months go by, they break up, same feeling again, and then go through the cycle, and it just turns into a mess, right? That person becomes emotionally drained. But why? Because they've been involved in a few relationships. They have given pieces of their heart to certain people. They have given, a piece of them, right? And emotionally they're drained now, because they've gone through heartbreak, and then they have to recover from that, and then it's like a cycle, and it's not good. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for you spiritually, of course, nor is it healthy for you mentally either. It's not good for you. Emotionally, it's not healthy for you. Okay? So this is why, if you're wondering, why doesn't Islam allow us to just have a few relationships here and there? Why as Muslims can't we do X, Y, Z? Look, you can do whatever you want. If you get married, you can. I promise you, you can, right? You can do whatever you want. You can enjoy, okay? But why? Because marriage is a long term. It's a commitment. And you would think so many times before you get married. It's not just a quick impulse decision. You jump into a relationship and that's that. You're supposed to think about so many areas. Islam's not making anything difficult for you, right? Islam's making it easy for you. It's very simple to get married, but you still have to think about different things before you jump into that. Okay, so this is just like an introductory points that I'm making here about what is love. I just want you all to understand and think a bit deeper about what is love. What are these feelings, and how do we kind of remedy this love, right? So this is another tweet where Mufti Liaqat Zaman, he says, when someone thinks they've fallen in love with someone online we're talking about, because of what? The quotes and the images that they put up or stuff that they say online, then sad to say, but you're fooled, he said. You're fooled, right? If that's what, if you think you've fallen in love with them because of that, he says, unless you're going to, after marriage, just watch each other upload things online, then you need to look for what's beyond the screen. Right, nowadays we come across accounts. Forget meeting someone online. Forget meeting someone or seeing someone in person at your university campus, or in town, in the high street, outside. Forget that. Now it's like you see an account online, and the pictures that they've posted of themselves, which we know, right, isn't exactly, it isn't exactly the real kind of image of that person, right? Or even if it's not an image of them, you see they're uploading these nice quotes, these nice images, mashallah, nice reminders, that they come across very religious, and they may well be religious. We're not doubting that. But is that what, is what we look at specifically just for marriage? Is that it? Well, you made your mind up, now you fall in love with this person online, you've never seen them in person, you don't know much about their background, but all you know now, oh yeah, they must be, mashallah, very, very religious. Why? Because he's got a beard, or she's wearing nice hijab and niqab, or I can hear him say a few Arabic words, mashallah, sounds nice, the Arabic, right? No, that's not what marriage is about. Even if that person can speak Arabic and does have a beard, does that mean that they're husband material? Does that mean that they are wife material? Does that mean that they are a good, compatible spouse for you? Maybe not. Maybe they are. We don't know, but you can't judge it based on these few things, right? Online. So that's something else to think about, right? There's so many other things that we can speak about and mention when it comes to love. I guess one of the greatest struggles that that young Muslims have today, living in the West, is like the search for love itself. I am looking to get married, and I am, I'm trying to keep things legit. Yeah, I'm trying to do things properly. How do I go about it? And this is not something that, to be honest with you, I can answer for you. I don't have all the answers. Nobody has the answers to these things. Every case and situation is unique. Okay? It depends on where you live, what kind of area you live in, what your background is in, how old you are, right? Culture, what your culture is like. Okay? Because every culture is different. If you're Pakistani, or if you're Moroccan, or if you're Somali, or if you're Bangladeshi, there's different cultures that we're talking about here. Not every culture is the same, right? There's so many factors to this that I can't give you a blanket answer and say, here's how you go and find a spouse, right? Here's the best way of doing it. There's no best way or ideal way. You know what I mean? Like this is something that is so specific, case by case. Every case is different, right? But we can discuss a few general points, like nowadays we talk about this whole concept of love marriage versus like an arranged marriage. If you were to ask me what's one of the most, till this day, I spend outside of the pandemic anyway, I spent most of my time conducting nikah ceremonies, right? I'm an imam. I travel up and down the country, and through the Nikah service that we have, I've conducted myself personally and the team, it's like hundreds of Nikah ceremonies over the last few years. And by what that means, because we've conducted hundreds of Nikah ceremonies, that means we've spoken to hundreds of couples in the process, right? And every couple, they're not the same. You've got Pakistani couple, you've got, one marrying into another culture, intercultural marriages, Pakistani marrying a Bangladeshi, you've got Somali marrying a Moroccan, you've got Afghani marrying a Mauritian. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've spoken to so many couples from such diverse backgrounds, okay? And every story is different, okay? And, one of the most effective ways of getting married, to be honest with you, a lot of people, is through the arranged marriage route. It's still to this day very effective, and lots of people get married through that route, right? Now, what is an arranged marriage, love marriage? If I'm completely honest with you, I always say this as well, I always make it clear that I don't really like these terms. I don't really like these terms in the first place, because for a number of reasons. One is, if you say arranged marriage and a love marriage, it's almost as if you're saying that the people who went through arranged marriage are not in love with each other, and only the love marriage guys and girls are in love. Does that make sense? The other thing I don't like is that there seems to be the shaming of love marriages, that we kind of attribute love marriages to haram. Like, oh, love marriage is when a guy and a girl, they meet behind whatever their family's back, they do whatever they want, and then they end up getting married in the end. That's a love marriage. That's completely wrong, actually. I don't think that is the case. If anything, I think both are fine. And again, I don't see, sometimes there's a huge overlap between the two as well. I'll give you an example. An example just would be that you have come across someone, again, wherever, a guy has come across a girl somewhere, and they have shown an interest in each other, right? Again, I don't want to go into the details. I can't tell you the details, because like I said, I'm just giving you a general scenario here. And then they go to their parents, they go to their families, and they bring it up with their families that we are interested in marrying each other. And then the families look into that and they explore that option, and then they end up getting married, right? According to a lot of people, that is a love marriage, because two people, they met each other and then they came to their parents. An arranged marriage is usually when someone within the family has recommended someone, from someone else, introduced the two together themselves, and then they end up getting married, kind of thing, right? That's what we call an arranged marriage, okay? But for me, there's an overlap between the love marriage thing. It's like, but it was arranged because they came to the parents. That's, what else are they going to do, right? They didn't do it. We're not saying they did anything haram. They came to the parents. They expressed an interest and they got married. If anything, that falls into arranged marriage for me more than anything else. And alhamdulillah, it worked out. But you might say, yeah, but how did they meet though? What were they doing though? What's all this about? It's a bit dodgy for me. Okay, firstly, you have to remember, it's none of your business, my friend, right? Who are you to ask questions? It's none of your business what they were doing before that. They're getting married. Focus on that. Focus on the outcome, right? Not all the details. You're never going to find a single hadith, right, where the Prophet ﷺ, he asked any of his companions that came to him when they were ready to get married or after they got married. You're never going to find him ask, so how did you two meet? So how did you two get married? So what's the story behind it? Nowadays, the first question that you get asked when you get married is, oh, so how did you two meet? What's the story behind it? It's none of your business. None of your business. And you know what? Why? What's that? How does that concern you? And what's this got to do with anything? So that's the first thing. Now, I'm not here to say, people are perfect and they may not cross boundaries, etc. Okay, but you have to understand that how else can people meet if they don't meet through what I call an organic way? Organic way is, like, it can happen. And again, I don't want to start giving examples or painting pictures, because you could say, yeah, but this and that, and this could happen and that could happen. That's why I don't like going into these things. But it can happen, like, organically. The most basic example I can think of is, you have two work colleagues, right? You work in a place where, of course, like a lot of places, men and women are there. There's a work colleague of yours. Now, can you ignore that work colleague? Right? In a professional environment, there's nothing wrong with, and this is where we talk about gender interaction as well. When we talk about gender interaction, again, there needs to be a balance here. It's not haram to speak to the opposite gender. Yeah, when I say it's not haram, meaning like the default is not that it's just completely haram to speak to the opposite gender. Don't even look at them, don't even acknowledge them, don't even speak to them. That's impossible, because I already clarified at the beginning that we don't live in a segregated society. We have to communicate, right? We have to speak to each other. How else is our things going to move on, right? So yes, when we talk about gender interaction in the context of two people, a boy and a girl, right, by themselves, okay, yes, of course, we're going to say there's problems there now. You're by yourself, you're talking to each other, you're going out with each other. That's something else. That's a different context. I'm talking about generally here. Okay, so please don't, again, take it the wrong way. Generally, gender interaction between man and woman. You go to the shop, all of you, including myself, all of us, you all go out to shops. Okay, you go out to town. You go to Sainsbury's, you go to Tesco, Asda, whatever, your grocery store, your local corner shop. There's men and women there, right? Sometimes for a man, the one who's serving you is a woman. For a woman, served by a man. Okay, you're going to interact, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not haram to interact. It's not haram to say, how are you? To show some manners, to show some politeness to that person. Okay, of course, you know your intention better than anyone else, right? You could say, hey, good morning, how are you? In a flirtatious way, in a way because you're attracted to her. That's up to you. Like, I can't tell you exactly what to say and what to do in every part of your life. That's your intention. Allah, that's between you and Allah. I can't, but I'm talking generally speaking, you have to communicate. You have to be polite with people. You go to the shop, you go to university, you guys are university students, lecturers, colleagues, admin, right? Even your own students, classmates. Okay, there will be times where you have to interact with each other. You can interact with each other in a respectful manner, with barriers, with boundaries. You can do that. It's very possible. Again, Muslims, a lot of Muslims today, they think that gender interaction from the get-go is completely haram. In Medina, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, do you think that men and women did never interact with each other in a respectful manner? Right? The marketplace was open. Men and women were there. Right? The masjid, men were at the front, women were at the back. There was no barrier, there were no curtains, there was nothing blocking them off. They shared the same space, but they were respectful towards each other. They were considerate towards each other. They focused on their own etiquettes and their own character before anything else. That's why they didn't have these feelings and awkwardness and so on, right? They could do that respectfully, and we can do the same if we work on ourselves before anything else, right? If our hearts are not filthy, right? If we purify our hearts, and we can just go by our lives, right? That's just the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so that's how it was in the time of the Prophet. The Prophet never forbade anybody unless it's in a specific case, like a man and a woman alone together in khalwa, in seclusion. Okay, the third of them is shaitan, But in a professional environment, for example, in the workplace, coming back to my example, there's, you have a work colleague. Of course, you've seen each other. You know what you look like now. Okay, maybe sometimes you have to communicate with each other. Right? Again, it's not like you're going out for lunch together by yourselves and meeting up later. It's just within work, you have to communicate with each other. You know each other. You can tell, like you yourself can tell if someone's a nice person, if someone's not a nice person. If you don't get a good vibe from someone, you do get a good vibe from someone. You can tell that when you go uni, when you go outside, you can pick these things up. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure these things out, right? It's very simple. It's basic human interaction. Right, social interaction. That's just how it works. And it may be, like I said, it's very natural, it's very organic, that you like someone, like that work colleague of yours. You like them. You're like, you know what? I'm attracted to them, right? I they seem like a nice person, right? And that's what I'm talking about. Like something like that is not haram. Like it's not the end of the world. What you do personally, what they do, of course, it depends what you end up doing, right? But if say there's a situation where you are interested in getting married, and you find out from them somehow, and by the way, you can use your initiative here. Some people, they ask questions like, yeah, but how do I speak to them? Isn't that haram as well? What do I do? Like, you can use your initiative, like there's other people around you. It's a small word. You can find out about them even without even asking them themselves. Trust me, it's easy. When you're in that situation, trust me, you will end up finding a way, right? Even if you were to find out from them that they are interested in getting married, you go and take it to your family, and you let them take over. Take over meaning what? As in, like, you let them meet the families, and you go through the formal process, right? Now, in Islam, are we forbidden, like when it comes to gender interaction and so on, are we forbidden to not speak to our prospective spouse? You meet them once, and that's it. You meet them next on the wedding day, on the day of the nikah, and that's it. Job done. No, this is not the case. Don't get me wrong. I know people that have done this, by the way. I know people that have done this. They've literally saw each other once through like this arranged marriage route. They saw each other once on the day, and they said yes, and they got married like 4 months later. And alhamdulillah, they've been married for many years, and they're happily married. I know people. I got relatives like that. I got friends like that. It can happen. I'm not ruling that out either. But I'm saying, is that the only way? Like, what if you want to speak to that person? What if you want to find out more about that person? Are you restricted in that case? Of course you're not restricted. With boundaries, of course. We're not saying you start going and start dating each other, right? With boundaries, of course you can. There's many ways of you speaking and communicating and meeting and seeing each other, right? With the boundaries and with the etiquettes, of course there are. With family involved and so on, of course you can. And in fact, I would advise that nowadays. I would in fact advise that, right? This is not something I'm just coming up with. This is even discussing with my own teachers. I would advise you to find out who this person is instead of just making a decision like that to marry and commit your life to this person. Again, there's ways of going about it. I'm not, I know when I say it like that, it sounds like I'm saying, go out, do whatever you want. I'm not saying that, right? And the reason why I'm not going deeper and giving you more examples of how is because, like I said, culturally and depending on your background, depending on your individual case, I don't know. Like, I can't speak on behalf of everyone here, but there are ways of going about it. I promise you that much. And there are great scholars that have said the same thing, that yes, you can communicate with each other, with boundaries, with family involved, with etiquettes and so on. Okay? So this is just me giving you an example, right, of how people can meet each other and how you can find love. Like, that's the scenario I gave you. You'd be very lucky, alhamdulillah, if you were to find yourself in that situation organically. Like I said, it could be that somebody else introduces you to someone. There's so many ways of you meeting someone, right? But the key is you have to be ready for marriage. You have to manage your expectations. You need to know about yourself going forward and keep a few things in mind, right? This is another tweet here where Sheikh Abdul Rahman Mafi, right, he says, my categorical advice to any two individuals who sincerely want to get married is don't date, right? The stress of doing what's outside of what's good for your soul will eventually cause issues in your relationship and will drain it from the blessings y'all could have had. Right? He's American, by the way, that's why. Right? Y'all could have had, right? It's going to drain your relationship from blessings if you start dating each other, right? Putting aside the halal haram aspect, okay, let me tell you something about this Western concept of dating, right? What is a date? Okay, let's talk about it. You go on a date with each other, okay? Let me tell you, that process is very fake, okay? That process of dating each other is actually very fake if you think about it. Just think about it for a moment, okay? In the West, the concept is you dress up for each other, okay? You go out on this whatever romantic evening, night, whatever. You buy each other something. He buys her a necklace. You go out for a nice dinner. You speak and interact with each other. Okay, let me just tell you from the get-go, this thing was all fake, because you're being impressed by someone. You're impressed by someone who doesn't always look like that, or dress like that, who doesn't always act like that, who is on their best behavior on that night, who is doing certain things to, of course, make you happy and so on for that moment. So you're very impressed and you're taken aback, like, wow, this is amazing. Let's go on another date, right? but it doesn't last. You know what I mean? But with marriage, it's very real. Like, this is why in Islam we don't say, okay, just go on dates. That's a fake process. With marriage, is very real. It's like, that's why we always say, if in the general cases, right? Because there's always exceptions where families, etc. There's issues and so on, right? Or there's no family there, right? But generally speaking, that's why we say like families are involved in this process, right? And so on with marriage. It's very real because when you have family involved, you're not fake anymore. You're like, okay, this is real. Like, I can't mess about here. I can't just like take you for a ride here, right? I gotta like, my family know, your family know. Like, we gotta keep it real here. We gotta really like come to a decision. Is this the right thing? I'm gonna pray istikhara. I'm gonna make dua. I'm gonna speak to my family. I'm gonna get advice from my teachers. Like, I need to think: am I really gonna get married? Is this the right person? You're gonna think things through before you commit, before you tie the knot, as they say, before you say "I do," as they say, right? But with the dating, it's not like that. It's like, okay, I didn't like it, or I did enjoy this. Yeah, we'll try again, or maybe not. It's very fake, to be honest with you. So don't think that you're missing out on anything. If you can't date someone, you're not missing out on anything, to be honest with you. And again, are we saying that you can't get to know your spouse, that Islam is boring, na'udhu billah, and it's just draining everything away from you and taking away this fun of yours that you could have had in the West as a teenager or as a person in their young adult in their 20s? No, Islam still allows you to get to know your spouse, to have those feelings towards them, and then when you get married, that continues and it's even better than anything else. All of that is there. You're not missing out on anything. Okay? So remember, there's always a wisdom behind why something is okay, why something's not okay, Islamically speaking. There's always a wisdom behind it. Okay? And this next tweet is also really good, really important thing to think about, which is like the scariest part about seeking marriage is not really about who the other person is, but it's actually about who you are as a person. Only when you have to describe who you are truthfully do those rose-tinted glasses fall off. It's better to ask yourself now than later. This is a really important point, which is before you get married, you think about the important questions like, usually we say, yeah, I'm looking for this person, this kind of person, this height, needs to be praying 5 times a day, needs to be like this, good character, family orientated, etc. Then you take a step back and you're like, okay, am I praying 5 times a day? Am I religious myself? Am I family orientated myself? Am I this? Am I that? Right? Work on yourself first. Right? We always say that before you look for the ideal partner, right, make yourself the ideal person to marry. Right? What's so good about you? What's so great about you that people should be running in front of the queue to marry you, right? Well, why are you so special for? This is a humbling experience. Introspection, self-reflection, right? Before you get married, you have this level of maturity about yourself that that I've done what I can here. I'm not just jumping into something because someone's telling me to do it, or because I think that I'm so in love with this person, or because I've got nothing better to do. You got to think these things through. And it's really important that this is leading up now to marriage itself, that we think about these things clearly. Okay, one thing, inshallah, that we're going to end with before we have a Q&A session is I want to share with you a story. And this story is not just a story of someone that I know, right, or something like that. It's a story from the Quran itself, right? And the Quran tells us the story of Musa alayhi salam. Right, his story is mentioned throughout the Quran. And I want you to pay close attention to this story, because here it's a story which is going to teach us many lessons about not just gender interaction and so on, but also marriage itself. Okay, and the Quran, the one thing I love about the Quran is the Quran is very relatable across all times. And this is the kind of story that we can all relate to. And it's the kind of story that's very real. It's not like it's not like in movies where after you watch a film, you're like, yeah, but that's never going to happen anyway. It's just so unrealistic, right? The way Hollywood and Bollywood paints the picture is like, you're walking on the street and then you see, you're a guy and you see a girl and she trips over and you catch her, right? These things don't happen. Okay, that's just not how it works, right? But the Quran gives you real pictures. Okay, this is Musa alayhi salam. And to give you some quick context about what exactly because of course there's so many parts of Musa alayhi salam's story in the Quran. This is in Surah Al-Qasas, and Musa alayhi salam, at this point, basically, we all know he's from Egypt. Yeah, he's born in Egypt. He's raised in Egypt. But he had to, at this point in his life, this is before he became a prophet, by the way. This is in his younger years, right? There's one point in his younger years, before he became a prophet, that he had to leave Egypt. He had to escape because the police, the authorities were after him. Why? Because of something that had happened, right? And they said that he's killed someone, and basically they're after him, and they were going to kill him without taking him to trial, right? They were planning to just kill him. They were looking for an excuse to kill him. So he had to leave Egypt. So where did he? So he ended up leaving. He left by. Imagine he's by himself. He's traveling for a long time. He's literally got no food. He's homeless now, right? He's got not many clothes on him. Okay, he's really super tired. Okay, he's like I said, he's all alone. Okay, and then he ends up in this land called Madian. This place is called Madian, right? And to Madian, and basically the first place he wants to go to is the water well, right? Back then you had water wells. You go to the water well because he's thirsty. He hasn't had food for days, right? So he goes to the water well, and when he gets to the water well, he sees a large group of men there, and these are all like shepherds, right, with their animals, with their flocks, and they're watering their flocks. Okay, and at the end of the queue, he sees two women there. Two women are there, and he can clearly see these women are like distressed. You know, these men aren't letting them get their water. These men are making them wait. Right, these weren't very good men in that part of in this region. So Musa alayhi salam, he goes up to them and he communicates with them. He asks them, right, ma khatbukuma, what's the matter with you two? Like, why are you here for? You know, and they say, look, our father, we've come here to water our flocks, and our father's a very old man. Wa abuna shaykhun kabir. He's a very old man. So Musa alayhi salam got he got it now. He understood that these are two women. The reason why they've come, they're sisters, two sisters. The reason why they've come is because their father is really old man. He can't do these things himself. So they're out here, but these men aren't really treating them well, whatever. So Musa alayhi salam himself, he says to them, don't worry, I will sort this out for you. So he goes to the front of the queue. He himself, you know, he's a very strong man. He lifts the lid of the well. He takes the bucket of water himself. You know, he carries the water to them and he gives it to them and says, here you go, water your flocks now. And they were like, wow, where did this man come from? You know, where does this guy come from? Like, all of these men, they're so inconsiderate. And now this guy comes, mashallah, and he's helped us out so much. And they go home. You know, they leave Musa, they thanked him, they go home, right? And obviously when they got home, it's not mentioned in the Quran, but what would have happened is they would have gone to their father. Their father would have been like, that's quick. Normally you guys take ages. How come you got back so quick today? And they would have obviously told them the story, like this man came out of nowhere and he gave us this, you know, he just helped us out and he just went off himself. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't ask for payment. You know, he didn't speak to us in a rude way. He didn't take advantage. He's just a sincere, humble guy. So the father said, you need to go and call them, right? So here's the first verse, right? I'll read the translation, which is, you know, Musa alayhi salam, as we said, he watered their flocks for these two women. Then he withdrew into the shade, right? Because it's not like he had a hotel booked or anything. He's literally by himself. He's homeless. So the only way he could rest was go under a tree and go under the shade of that tree. He's got nothing. And all he did, he's made dua to Allah at this point. He said, Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khayrin faqir. He said, oh my Lord, I am in dire need of whatever good thing you can send my way. Like, I'm so desperate right now, oh Allah, anything good you can send my way, I just need it. Whether it's food, shelter, protection, I need it. Because imagine how scared he would have been any time they could come and kill him, right? He's got nothing. He's got no food. He's just desperate. But even then, he still went out of his way to help someone else. So what then happened shortly afterwards? So these two women, they went home. After some time, one of the two sisters came back. And Allah mentions, Tamshi ala istihya, right? She approached him walking shyly in a modest manner. Now, imagine this. Musa alayhi salam, he's by himself. She is by herself, right? This is a man and a woman. They're about to interact with each other. Remember I said before, is it haram for a man and woman to interact without, you know, just like if there's a need to do so, right? No, it's not. Of course it's not. And here we have a Musa, who's soon to be a prophet of Allah, interacting with a woman, but in a very respectful manner. And Allah describes that even the way she walked towards him was a modest manner. She walked shyly, with haya. And Musa alayhi salam, the way that he was with her, he was also modest as well. And what did she say to him? She said, look, my father is asking for you. My father's calling you. I told him about what happened. And guess what? He wants to reward you for watering our flocks for us. I know you didn't ask for reward and payment, but our father wants to do that for you. So Musa alayhi salam said, fine, no problem. So he followed her home. Right? Again, respectful interaction between the two. Now they get home, and Musa alayhi salam, he meets the father, and he tells him the whole story of everything that's happened in his life up until now. And the old man said, don't be afraid, la takhaf, don't worry, you're okay. You are now safe, right? I've got your back, don't worry, you can stay here with me for now. Okay? You all following what's happening, yeah? So now he's in the house, and the man said, you seem like a really good guy, right? You help my daughters out, whatever, I think you should stay with us. So then that same daughter that, approached him, she says to her father, one of the sisters said, oh, my father, I think you should hire him. Yeah, like, we do this day in, day out. We'd rather that you hire this guy instead. He seems like he knows what he's doing. He's a strong guy. He can go and sort this out for us. He'd be a really good employee. So she literally says to her father, Father, hire him. Inna khayra man istajarta al-qawi al-amin. She describes him with two things. She says, he is qawi, he is amin. That a strong, qawi, amin, trustworthy man is the best person you can hire. She has already identified in Musa alayhi salam good qualities. One is a physical quality. Physically, Musa alayhi salam is a strong man, right? And there is an internal quality as well, which is that he is a trustworthy man. He is someone you can rely on, someone you can trust, a man of integrity, right? So she has already analyzed this. She knows that he is a good man. Musa alayhi salam knows that she is a good woman. The way that she approached him, right? Her humility, the way that she was serving her father, the way that she interacted with him. Okay, Musa knows this is a righteous woman. She knows this is a righteous man. So the father's sitting in the middle like, I see what's happening here, right? So what does he say? Look, if this guy is going to stay in the house, right, and to him, these are two strange women, right? There's only one solution, right? There's only one solution here. Clearly, his daughter is hinting to her father, like, this is a good guy. I like this guy. She's a single woman. He's a single man. There's only, the father's thinking straight. He's thinking, okay, maybe these two can, so this is what he says to him. He says, look, he says to Musa alayhi salam, I would like to marry you to one of these daughters of mine. Right? Meaning, of course, when he said one of these daughters, he's talking about that one that was speaking. Right? What's the condition? Look, basically, if you can serve me for 8 years, if you can, serve me for 8 years, right? That's amazing. If you can complete 10, that's even better. If you can do the full 10 years, decade, it's of your own free will, and I don't intend to make things difficult for you, etc., etc. So basically, Musa alayhi salam, remember the dua he made? A few verses back, he said, Ya Allah, I am in need of any good thing that you can send down to me. Now all of a sudden, Allah has accepted his dua. He was alone, Allah is now blessing him with a wife. He gets married to this woman. He didn't have any money, Allah's blessed him with a job now. He didn't have any shelter, Allah's given him a home to live in now. Right? He didn't have any food, he's got everything he needs now. He's got companionship, he's got family now. This is now his family, these are his in-laws now, if you think about it. Right? He's got everything now, alhamdulillah. He was safe, he's got safety now. Right? The point being, there's so many lessons that we can take from this small passage. This is Surah Al-Qasas, chapter 28, verses 24 to 27, basically, or verses 24 to 28, I think it is. Right? So, just one or two lessons that we can take from this. Number one, we spoke about it. This is a real story. This is a prophet of Allah, right? Who gets married. How does he get married? Nowadays we would, we call this, is this an arranged marriage? What is this? A love marriage? We're not even going to talk about that. Like I said, I don't like these things, right? But what happened was a very natural way that a man and woman met. Okay? and the father then is involved, and the father marries his daughter off, and Musa alayhi salam gets married. They respectfully spoke to each other. They interacted with each other, right? They saw each other. They admired each other. They saw beyond the physical, and they saw other qualities like trustworthiness and honesty and integrity and modesty. This is what they saw in each other. Marriage wasn't just about, okay, you look like a handsome man, you look like a beautiful woman, let's get married. That's not what it was. And then the families got involved, and then they got married. This is a real life story, guys, of a prophet of Allah, okay, in the Quran. So my point is, there's so many lessons we can learn from this. Unfortunately, time does not permit me to go into all of this, but I'm sure you get the idea. There's many things that inshallah we can go away and reflect on based on this beautiful passage from the story of Musa alayhi salam. We'll end with a last few tweets, inshallah. And this one is from Sheikh Saad Taslim, who says, golden advice: before you start planning your ideal wedding, start planning your ideal marriage. Right? Nowadays, what we focused on, my wedding needs to be perfect. I want this many guests. I want this venue. I want this car. I want this cake. I want this dress. But we haven't even thought about our marriage, And by the way, I'm not saying you can't have a nice wedding. That's up to you. If you can afford it, that's what you want. Whatever, nobody's there to stop you. Obviously, you got to be sensible about it. You don't throw yourselves into debt over it. But the last thing on their mind is, so basically after those 4 or 5 hours of great fun and entertainment at the wedding, when the actual married life kicks in. So like, what happens next? What are we planning? What are we thinking about for marriage? How am I going to juggle my responsibilities? How am I going to give time to my spouse? Are we going to have children? At what point? Are we going to live together? Are we going to live with our parents? Are we going to live separately? How can I invest in this marriage? How can I make sure that I'm good, the best that I can be as a spouse in this marriage? We don't think about these things. We're just like, yeah. Let's get married. Let's get this nice wedding done. Okay. So it's golden advice. Really important stuff to actually to think about, right? So that's that, alhamdulillah, in terms of the content that I wanted to share with you all today. Of course, there's so much more that we can speak about, right? There's so much more that we can speak about. But for the time being, we'll leave it at that because I want some time for some Q&A as well if there's any questions. And of course, the second session that inshallah we'll do next week, everything today was about love and building up to marriage. And next week, inshallah, we'll talk about marriage itself. Inshallah, this is the premarital stuff, and then the postmarital stuff about marriage itself, and what are some of the key things to keep in mind, the principles that we can learn from the life of the Prophet ﷺ. These kind of things we'll cover next week, inshallah. Before I hand it back to the brothers, inshallah, to take over, one thing that I wanted to share with you all, and they've kindly allowed me to share, is if you do want more details, this is a short program that we've got right now, just with myself. And we can't go into detail, as you can tell, right? We've gone through the points fairly quickly. But if you do want details, then we've actually got, inshallah, an annual, we do this every year, a marriage seminar, a weekend marriage seminar. This year, of course, because of COVID and everything, it's all online, so it's a webinar. We're going to keep it as interactive as possible. We're going to be joined by Sheikh Salim Al-Azhari, Ustadh Saliha Bukhari, right? And of course, I'll be there as well. It's on the weekend of the 27th, 28th. So it's literally less than 2 weeks away. The first session is 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And the second session on the Sunday is 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., right? And, it's all online. It's live and on demand, by the way, meaning that, of course, if you can attend live, that's great. That's perfect. But even if you can't make it that weekend or you're going to miss parts of it, you can purchase the recording and the notes and everything will be sent to you. What kind of topics are we going to cover? A range of things, right? Before marriage, gender interaction, rules of engagement, how to find a spouse, things like sexuality and intimacy, the first night, what men and women should know about each other, in-laws, how to maintain a happy marriage and relationship. We're going to have activities in between and workshops, things to think about and reflect on. Of course, Q&A sessions. So we've got all of this, inshallah, coming up in less than 2 weeks' time. And it's very easy to register. You can head over to thenikahco.com/webinar. I'll send the link on the chat as well. And please use the discount code. This is a discount code for you guys because you're students for 50% off the tickets, right? You just use the student discount code as given here, student50 at the checkout, basically on Eventbrite, and then you can get 50% off. So this is limited time. Try and book your tickets as soon as possible, inshallah. Like I said, 2 options: live and on demand. I've sent the link as well, so if I can ask the brothers to send that to all the participants on now, so they can get a direct thing. And yeah, inshallah, it'll be great to see you all there. Of course, I'm going to see you next week anyway, inshallah, for those of you that attend next week. But this annual marriage seminar with the panel and with the discussions we're going to have in the more detail, definitely highly recommend it. And it will be great to see some of you there. Like I said, use the discount code and take advantage of that, inshallah. Otherwise, forgive me for any of my shortcomings if I said anything or made any mistakes. Anything good that I've said is from Allah Azza wa Jal. Anything bad I've said is from shaitan and from myself. It's been a great pleasure to be with you all. Jazakumullah khair to you all for your time on this weekday evening. May Allah bless you all. May Allah accept it from us. May Allah grant us what is best in both worlds. And yeah, inshallah, we'll have a Q&A session. I'll pass it over to the brothers again. Barakallahu feekum.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. That was a very interesting talk. And especially the ending, the story of Musa, that was really beautiful. I just mentioned, I had an Arabic class about a few weeks ago, and we were actually going through this passage, and it was we were just highlighting the beauty of Arabic as well, in terms of how specific the daughter was, and kind of very strong and very trustworthy person, rather than just any type of other strong and trustworthy man. So it's a really beautiful story. And also, yeah, I've put the link into the chat box for this event, and also the discount code student50. So again, this is again surface level. This is a surface level event. If you really want to learn more about it, again, this event probably goes into more detail. More time is probably invested into this. So yeah, do attend this event if you are interested. We'll take questions, inshallah. So if you want to put your questions in the chat box, feel free, or you can directly message, inshallah, and we can have this.
Yeah, feel free to send your questions, inshallah. And obviously, I think it's a private chat anyway, so you can keep it anonymous, and you can be as open as you want as well. There's no issues, there's no restrictions, as long as inshallah it's respectful. There's no problem with any questions that you send. More than happy to, if I can, answer those questions and discuss, as we should, as Muslims, inshallah, just be straight and respectful about these things, and just not avoid things, even if it's taboo culturally. So yeah, any questions you have, please do send them through, inshallah.
So we've got a question here. How much is the happily ever after event?
Follow the link, inshallah. It's literally all there. Yeah, literally. If you follow the link, the prices are there, and of course, like we said, if you use the discount, I can't actually remember off the top of my head. That's why I'm avoiding exactly quoting anything. But literally, if you follow the link, it's there. Literally, it's all there, inshallah. I'm no longer a student, but can I use the discount code? Yeah, bismillah. Anybody that's on right now, yallah, no problem at all. You can all use it, inshallah.
Okay, Rafiq. How do you deal with rejection?
Rejection. I take it as in the context of what, like a marriage talk or something like that? Because rejection, it could be. So. Yeah, okay, fine. So let's say it's in the context of marriage. How do you deal with rejection? I mean, it's one of those things. It's one of those things in life, isn't it? I guess we should talk about it generally. Who doesn't face rejection in life? You might have not got into your first choice university, first choice course. You may have been rejected a job offer, right? Yeah, so many things. When it comes to marriage, again, I mean, it's not as easy as just saying, yeah, it's a life thing. You just got to get over it. No, it's a, what may have happened by that point is maybe you would have started to form. Remember, we spoke about the stages of love, and you came across someone, you thought that they were, compatible, you thought that they were good, and then for one reason or the other, they ended up saying no, right? And maybe you started forming those early levels of attachment there, right? Not that you did anything wrong. It's just it's natural to feel that way. So yes, it's more difficult to overcome that. But if you were doing istikhara the whole time from the beginning, which was, if you were making dua, if you were doing istikhara, if you were trying your best, you didn't do anything wrong, right? For them to just suddenly say no, that is, at the end of the day, you can't force anybody to marry you, right? It's completely somebody else's choice, whether it's a man or a woman. It's up to them whether they want to marry. So if a rejection takes place, what you have to do is, number one, remind yourself, this is what Allah intended for me. I did istikhara. Within my istikhara, within the istikhara prayer, what are we taught? We're taught to say, Allahumma in kunta ta'lam anna hadha al-amra khayrun li fi dini, or Allahumma in kunta ta'lam anna hadha al-amra sharrun li. Oh Allah, if you know that this matter is good, or if you know that this matter is bad, if it's good, then bless me and ordain it for me. If it's bad, then oh Allah, take me away from it, take it away from me. That's literally your dua being accepted. You asked for it, pretty much, right? You asked for it. You said, oh Allah, take me away from it if it's bad for me. So maybe it was bad for you. You may think from the surface it looked like a good thing, but Allah knows long term, down the line, it wouldn't have been a good thing for you. So in fact, you should say Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah either way. Alhamdulillah, I praise Allah that Allah has given me another chance. That doesn't mean it's the end of the world, by the way. There's not, we don't believe in like this whole, this Hollywood thing, or soulmate. There's only one person in the whole world out of 7-8 billion people. There's only one person that you can ever marry, or that one person that you can be compatible with. There's many people out there. Inshallah, you keep trying, you keep making dua, you keep doing what you were doing for the first time, you will find someone else. But yes, it will take time. I would even advise after the first time, if it doesn't go through, take your time. Don't jump into the next one. Take a few days, weeks out, kind of evaluate, recalibrate, and then come back into it. So these are a few things to inshallah keep in mind. Yeah, Allahu a'lam.
I've got another question. Yeah, I think this is an interesting one. How would you describe the boundaries that should be kept between a man and a woman in talking online? Between a man and a woman, is talking online a form of khalwa? How would you make sure you avoid the khalwa online?
Yeah, good question. You see, with khalwa, with seclusion, no doubt, like when it comes to online, and anything, I guess, obviously nowadays a lot of it is done online. Whether we like it or not, we live in the digital age. So of course we have to be careful. Of course there's boundaries. Of course we have to keep all of these. Just like if you were in person, right? There's things you have to keep in mind. Similarly, when you're online, there's etiquette, there's adab, there's things to keep in mind as well, right? Now, what's the fine line? Now, look, I can't speak on behalf of everyone, because again, there's differences in opinion in this as well. It's a sensitive issue, and that's why I'm not going to give you a blanket statement and say it's halal any scenario. Nor am I going to say it's haram completely. There's a fine line here. You have to be careful. But if online communication is a way of doing it, then look, make sure you've done everything that you can on your end. For example, you're involving family members. Your family know. It's not like you're just going and chatting to someone on just DMing a girl randomly and doing whatever you feel like doing. Remember, it's all about your intention. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. It's all about your intention. What is your intention when you're messaging this person? What is your intention? Is your intention, I want to slide into DMs, I just want to have a nice chat, I just want to, do whatever. If that's your intention, then that's going to be the outcome. That's what you have to be questioned about, and you're going to be answerable for that, right? If your intention is, I seriously am considering marrying this person, my family know, their family know, okay, and they are involved and whatever, okay, then that's your intention, and inshallah, if that's a good one, then you will get something good out of it, right? So it's all, I say, number one, It's what is your intention when you're talking to this person, right? Number two, what are the etiquettes that you are maintaining? Are you just messaging this person because, like you just, whatever, just good morning, hey, whatever, this, that, chit-chatting, just non-stop. You're not married. It's like, so if you're chit-chatting non-stop, what's stopping you from getting married at this point? Why aren't you getting married when everything could become halal, right? So what's stopping you? Why are you just turning into this prolonging? You only speak to each other when what? You need to speak to each other, right? There's questions to ask. There's things you need to know about each other. When it gets to that stage where you're just chit-chatting, then the question is, what's the delay now? Why haven't you got married? What's stopping you right now? Does that make sense? So it comes down to intention. It comes down to adab and etiquette. So yes, you got to be considerate of all of these things, inshallah. But again, like I said, you will hear horror stories. You will hear things go wrong. You will hear things go right. Okay, so we just got to do things the best we can. If you want to always be on the safe side, my best advice to you would be always keep your family in the loop. And number two, always seek advice and guidance from your teachers and your scholars. This is why I don't like answering these questions straight up, because people can take it whatever way they want. Some people may take this as, that sounds really strict though, do I need to tell my family everything? Others can take the same thing that I just said as, yeah, that means I can go and message whoever I want then, whatever. Remember, if you want to be on the safe side, my humble opinion to you all is, because like I said, your situations and scenarios are all unique. Each step of the way, contact someone that you know personally, a teacher, a sheikh, a local imam, and get guidance from them for your specific situation. And inshallah, they will be able to guide you. If you have guidance from those people, there's less chance that things can go wrong. Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakallah. Okay, so if a person ticks all the boxes in terms of priorities, but you don't know if you can vibe with the person, i.e., banter with them due to being respectful, how do you know you are compatible with them?
Yeah, there's two things. There's compatibility and there's chemistry. Yeah, these are two things. Compatibility, I think, is more important than chemistry, right? Chemistry is, how do you feel around each other? Of course, that has to be good. You have to get a good vibe from that person. You need to enjoy that person's company. But, will you ever really know that 100% until you get married to them? No. Even if you did spend time with them, there's restrictions, there's boundaries, there's people put on their best behavior. You can't 100% know. But what do we base it on then? We base it on a range of things. Number one is, yes, compatibility. They tick all the boxes. That's a great thing. Alhamdulillah, I would say you're 50% there already if you're compatible and they've ticked all the boxes. Number two is, what are other people saying about them? What are their relatives? What are their friends? What are other people saying about that person? That tells you a lot as well, right? This is why I say family is also very important. Because, why is family important? Because, for example, let's say you have certain family members that may speak to that same person on the side separately, or they may be able to, they may be able to, see them, right, in a different setting, kind of thing. Like, you won't be able to see them in that setting, but let's say you've got a sister that can, right? This is why it's important to get other people's opinions. It's important to get other people's recommendation. It's also important to see what ticks the box. So I would say if all of that is fine, then I wouldn't worry too much about that last step, which is, I'm not sure, am I gonna banter with this person? That's up to you, to be honest with you. I don't think banter comes down to the other person. I think that comes down to you. How are you? If that's what you're like, then if you're an easygoing person, if you're a person that is easy to get along with, then why wouldn't it work with that person? They're human beings. I'm sure they will appreciate that. I'm sure they'll be easygoing as well. And yes, initially, even if they are a bit, they need some time to break through, then you need to give them that time. That's fine. So I think if you've ticked all of those boxes, inshallah, then alhamdulillah, that's great. If it's the opposite, I would have been worried. If it's like, yeah, when I see them, we can vibe so well. I can banter with them, but they're not ticking all the boxes for me. I would say, yeah, that's more of a concern for me. Yeah, wallahu alam.
Okay, Jazakallah. Can we just fit in one more question?
Yeah, of course, inshallah, yeah.
Okay, okay, so how do you deal with parents discriminating against different ethnicities for marriage?
Yeah, excellent question. I had a similar question literally very recently. But I will say one thing before I answer, which is that, like I said, right, I'm conducting lots of nikah ceremonies, and one thing that we've seen over the past few years is that this is changing. Alhamdulillah, this is something where it's very common now. I'm starting to see where there's a lot of intercultural, interracial marriages taking place and so on. There's lots of that. In fact, I'm starting to see like majority are, it is that now. So alhamdulillah, that's a good sign. If you were to ask this question 10, 20 years ago, I think it would have been a lot more challenging. Can you blame your parents entirely for that? I would say no. You have to be a bit understanding and empathetic towards your parents. You can't just say to them, "Oh, you're so backwards. You're so racist." Remember, they're not thinking. I mean, though it may well be, it may be ignorant, it may be racist to do that and to say no based on that. But remember, you have to understand their context. They grew up in another part of the world. They grew up with those same that culture. They came to this country. When they came to this country, they kind of held on to their own people here. If you're a Bangladeshi and you came to this country, you try to stick with your fellow Bengalis, right? If you're a Somali, you stuck to your Somali community. Does that make sense? If you're whatever, same thing, right? So because of that, you kind of only see your own culture. So of course, when it comes to your own children, right, you want naturally to them to marry into that same culture. You're just more comfortable that way. So I appreciate that about our parents, and I don't think that's a bad thing per se. I don't think they have any ill intent. But when it comes down to it, and if there is someone that you've met and they are naturally a good person, they are genuinely a good person, and they are compatible, but the only thing is that they are from a different nationality, whatever, then of course it's wrong for your parents to say no. Does that make sense? If it was that, no, I don't think they're a good person, I'm not sure about their character, and yeah, on top of all of that, they're also from a different culture or nationality, and that's just going to make things harder, I'm with the parents in that case. Because it's not purely coming down to nationality, it's coming down to other factors as well, which is fair. Okay? But if it only comes down to that, then it's not fair. So what do you do in that case? You have to, for me, what I found is before you start thinking irrational, you start getting angry, which is frustrating. I understand that. You gotta prove to your parents that you're an adult. You gotta sit down with them, and you gotta have a conversation. You gotta face the issue, right? Because remember, your parents, they still, out of their love for you, they still think that you're that 10-year-old kid that is still running around, right? Even though you're in your 20s now, in your parents' eyes, you're still that little baby. You got to prove to your parents by sitting down with them, having a mature conversation with them. Mom, Dad, I love you so much. I really appreciate everything you've done for me, right? Whatever you've wanted, like I've gone to university, I've done this and that. I love you, and I love you for the sake of Allah. But in this case, like for XYZ reason, you got to prove to them why. You can't just be like, I like this person, Mom. You got to accept it whether you like it or not. That's not nice. This is your mother. This is your father. This is people who loved you. These are the people that come first before anyone else. You have to prove to them why. Look, for XYZ reason, and with all due respect, I know you want me to get, but they are good people, right? And you prove, and you have that conversation. I'm telling you that goes a long way. And if that's not working, you've got to get other people involved, whether it's a local imam, someone else that they trust, another family member of yours to mediate, a brother, if you've got an older sibling, or if you've got an uncle, someone that could mediate, or even an imam or someone to help the situation, right? And yes, there are extreme cases. I've come across extreme cases where no matter what that they've done, the parents still say no. And I would say we'll leave that scenario for another time, because that's a very specific scenario. But generally speaking, alhamdulillah, like I said, for most of the marriages that we've conducted, alhamdulillah, it took them time. I'll end with this one thing, that you got to be patient as well. Sometimes you want to marry someone, right? And it's only been like a month or two, and you're like, oh, it's so frustrating. What do I do? I can't get married to this person. It's like, calm down, man. It's only been a month or two. These things take time. You want to convince your parents. It's not going to happen overnight. If you've waited a year, maybe, fair enough. That's a long time. But you've only been waiting a few weeks, a few months. No, you've got to give it time. It's going to take time to convince them. It's going to take time to get over this. You can't just rush into it. So take your time, be patient, prove to them that you're an adult, get others to mediate, do things with wisdom, and inshallah, I would say 8 times out of 10 it works. And even if it takes some time, alhamdulillah, the marriage still goes through. And yes, there are those 1 or 2 times out of 10 small, one-offs where things go ugly, and may Allah protect us from that. But we can talk about that another time, about what happens in that specific case. So yeah, Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakallah, and I think we'll end it here. May Allah bless you, Ustadh. May Allah bless everyone who has come and taken interest in this really important topic. So Jazakallah, Barakallah Feek, Subhanakallahumma bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu alayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And we'll see you next Tuesday, inshallah, for the second workshop of this series.